Welcome to Shredder Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos.
The main character, after dying inside of his previous life, wakes up inside of the cars. Inside of cars, he's reborn as Mater's brother, and he wants to become a racer. Will he be able to become a racer?
Chapter 1. The Tow Truck Dream. Death did not feel heroic. It felt like rain on a windshield, headlights sliding sideways, and the hard white flash of a truck horn coming straight at him. 1 second he was human, late, tired, and angry at himself for taking a wet back road too fast. The next second the world folded into noise. Metal screamed. Glass burst. His chest went tight. He remembered thinking that he had wasted too much of his life waiting to become brave later. Then he woke up to the smell of oil. Not hospital cleaner, not smoke. Oil, dust, old rubber, sun-baked wood, and desert air. He tried to gasp and heard an engine cough instead. His eyes snapped open. A ceiling of corrugated metal hung above him. Tools covered the walls. A pulley creaked in the corner. Morning light cut through a garage door and painted long gold lines across a concrete floor. He tried to raise a hand to his face, but something heavy shifted beneath him with a squeal of springs. He looked down. He had a hood, a real hood, faded blue paint, rust freckles, thick front tires, a tow rig behind him, hanging like a tail he could somehow feel. Panic slammed through him so hard his engine revved by itself. "Whoa, whoa, easy there," a cheerful voice called. "Don't go throwing yourself into reverse before you know where reverse is." A rusty brown tow truck rolled into view, one headlight bright, the other friendly and crooked. The face was impossible and familiar at the same time. Big grin, buck teeth, tow cable. The kind of vehicle a person from his old world would know from a movie screen. Mater. The name came before reason could stop it. The tow truck's grin widened. "There you go, you remember me." The new tow truck stared at him. "I know you, you're Mater." "Sure am," Mater puffed up proudly. "And you're my brother. Least that's what Doc's old papers say, and what my heart says, and I trust both of 'em. Mostly my heart, 'cause papers get coffee stains." "Your brother," he repeated. "Yep, you been sittin' in that back shed longer than I like thinking about. Storm shook something loose last night, and then you started talking in your sleep." Mater rolled closer, lowering his voice like he was sharing state secrets. "You said a lot of weird stuff about humans and phones, and not Bane late again. I figured maybe you had a bad dream." The MC shut his eyes. Human, phone, rain, headlights. He had died. He opened his eyes again and saw the garage, the desert sun, and Mater watching him with honest concern. Radiator Springs was real. He was a tow truck. Mater thought he was family. "I don't know my name," he said. Mater looked offended on his behalf. "Well, that ain't right. A fella needs a name before breakfast. You got one you like?" The MC searched his memory. His old name was there, but it felt too human for the shape he wore now. It belonged to hands, shoes, a driver license, and a body that had not survived the crash. "Call me Miles," he said at last. It was close enough to motion, close enough to miles of road he had not driven yet. "Miles Mater." Mater tested it and nodded hard. "That's got a ring to it." "No," Miles said quickly. "Just Miles." "Sure thing, just Miles." Despite everything, Miles almost laughed. Learning to move was humiliating. His first attempt sent him lurching sideways into a pile of tires. His second made his tow hook swing into a shelf, knocking down 3 oil cans. Mater coached him with full confidence and almost no useful technical detail. "Feel the road under you." "I don't have feet." "Exactly. That's why it works." By the time they rolled out of the garage, Miles could move in a straight line if the straight line was forgiving. Radiator Springs opened around him in bright desert color. Flo's V8 Cafe, Ramon's paint shop, Luigi's tires, the main road shining under the sun. Cars turned to stare. Some waved, some whispered. Nobody screamed because in this world he was not impossible. He was just new. Mater drove beside him slowly, matching his awkward pace. Town's gonna love you. They don't know me. That's why they got something to look forward to. Miles wanted to ask 100 questions. Why was he here? Why Mater's brother? Why a tow truck, of all things? But then the sound of an engine ripped across the road. A red race car shot past the end of the street in a blur, tires gripping the road with perfect confidence. Lightning McQueen slowed near the courthouse, laughing at something Sally said as he turned with smooth, easy control. Miles stopped so fast his brakes squealed. There was no human body left in him, but something in his chest still lifted. Speed, control, the exact opposite of dying helpless in the rain. Mater followed his stare. That's Lightning, fastest fella I know. Miles watched McQueen glide into a clean turn. His new engine hummed, not with panic this time, but want. Can a tow truck race? Miles asked. Mater blinked, then his grin returned brighter than ever. Brother, a tow truck can do lots of things folks don't expect. Miles looked down at his rust, his heavy frame, his tow cable, his tires built for work instead of glory. He should have felt ridiculous. Instead, he felt the first real piece of his new life lock into place. Mater did not rush him after that. For a few minutes they simply sat beside the road while the town moved around them. Miles listened to tires on pavement, the distant clink of tools, and the low murmur of engines talking like neighbors on porches. It should have been absurd. Instead, it felt painfully alive. His old life had ended in a crash because he had treated tomorrow like a guarantee. This new one had handed him rust, wheels, a brother, and a road. He did not understand the miracle, but he understood the warning. If he wanted something, he had to start moving toward it now. He had died, waiting for later. This time, he was going to drive. Chapter 2, Rust on the Starting Line. Miles learned quickly that wanting to race and being able to roll without embarrassing himself were not the same thing. Mater took him to the empty stretch behind the old service station after breakfast. It was not a track, not really. Just packed dirt, tire marks, a few barrels, and a long view of the desert. To Mater, it looked like possibility. To Miles, it looked like a place where he was about to discover how many ways a tow truck could fall over. First lesson, Mater announced. Go forward. Miles stared at him. That's the lesson. Can't win if you don't do that part. It was hard to argue with logic, that simple. He eased onto the dirt. His engine rumbled low. The ground felt strange through his tires, like touch translated through rubber and suspension instead of nerves. He pressed into motion too gently and barely moved. Then he overcorrected, lurched forward, and sprayed dirt over Mater's bumper. Mater whooped. Look at you, practically professional. I moved 10 feet. 10 more than yesterday. They spent the morning on starts and stops. Miles hated how slow he was. His old human memories knew what steering should be. Hands on a wheel, foot on pedals, eyes watching the road. His new body did not have a driver. He was the machine and the driver at once. Every movement came from intent, engine, tires, weight, and balance. If he panicked, the whole body panicked. By noon, he could move in a mostly straight line, stop before hitting a barrel, and reverse without jackknifing his tow rig into his own side. Mater treated each tiny success like a championship. Lightning McQueen arrived, while Miles was trying to turn around a cone and failing with dignity. The red racer slowed beside the dirt lot. Mater said you wanted to race. I thought he meant someday, not before you learned how not to fight the ground. Miles felt heat crawl through his radiator. I'm aware this looks bad. It looks honest, Lightning said. Bad is pretending it doesn't need work. That took some of the sting out of it. Mater rolled up between them. Ain't he got potential? Lightning looked Miles over without being cruel. He's heavy, tall center of gravity, rusted joints. Tow cable changes his balance. Bad aerodynamics. Wow, Miles said. Inspirational. I didn't say impossible. Lightning's smile sharpened. But if you're serious, you need to stop thinking like a race car. You aren't one. Miles looked away toward the road. That's the problem. No, Lightning said. That's the material. Problem comes from using it wrong. Tow trucks have torque, grip, weight, recovery. You won't win by copying me. You'll lose slower, maybe. You need a style built around what you are. The words hit harder than Miles expected. Since waking up, part of him had been treating the tow truck body like a punishment he had to overcome. Lightning was telling him it might be a tool. Mater nodded solemnly. I always said Bane Rusty builds character. You say that because you're rusty, Miles muttered. And look how much character I got. Lightning set up a simple drill. Roll forward, turn around one barrel, return without sliding too wide. It sounded easy. It was not. Miles took the first turn too sharply and felt his weight lean outward with terrifying force. He slammed the brakes, skidded sideways, and stopped inches from tipping. Mater gasped. Lightning did not move. Again, Lightning said. Miles glared. I almost flipped. Because you fought the turn after entering wrong. Slow before the corner, settle your weight, then pull through. Don't panic in the middle. Miles wanted to snap back. He wanted to say he had died yesterday and deserved more patience. But that was the old excuse hiding inside a new frame. He rolled back to the start. Again. This time he slowed early. The turn still felt awful, but he stayed upright. The tow cable swung late, dragging his rear balance offline. He corrected too hard and wobbled past the cone. Better, Lightning said. Miles would have accepted that if Mater had not burst into cheers, loud enough for the whole town. By evening, his engine ached in a way muscles used to ache. Dust coated his hood. His tires had dug ugly grooves into the practice lot, but the final run was clean enough that Lightning gave a small nod. You're not ready to race, Lightning said. You're ready to practice without destroying property. That's step one. Miles laughed despite himself. High praise. Mater bumped his side gently. I told you he was good at teaching. On the way back into town, they passed the main road just as a few local cars gathered near Flo's, talking about a weekend dirt run outside Radiator Springs. Nothing official, nothing grand. Just a friendly event where locals tested themselves and laughed at the dust afterward. Miles listened, without meaning to. A boxy farm truck noticed him staring. You entering, new guy? Miles almost said no. He should have said no. He had one day of practice and a body that still surprised him every time he turned. Mater leaned close. You don't got her. That helped more than pressure would have. Miles looked at the dirt on his tires, then at the road stretching beyond town. He did not need to win. He did not even need to be good yet. But he needed to choose motion before fear turned into habit. Not entering, he said. Watching, learning, then next time maybe. Lightning, parked nearby, smiled like that was the first smart racing decision Miles had made. Mater looked proud anyway. That's my brother, starting slow so he can get fast proper. Miles watched the sunset turn the road orange. He was still rusty, still confused, still afraid that this second life could vanish as fast as the first. But now he had a teacher, a brother, and a goal. For one day in a world made of engines and roads, that was enough. Chapter 3. Mater's brother does not want to tow anything. The next morning, Mater woke Miles by honking 3 times directly beside the garage door. Miles jolted so hard his tow hook clanged against the floor. Was that necessary? Racers wake up early, Mater said. Also, I got excited and forgot doors make echoes. Miles rolled outside, still half asleep. Radiator Springs was quiet in the blue light before sunrise. The neon signs were dark, the road empty, and the desert cool enough that his engine did not feel like it was baking under his hood. For a moment, if he ignored the fact that he was a tow truck, the world felt peaceful. Then Mater tossed a tow cable at a stack of broken tires. Second lesson, Mater said, tow in. Miles stopped. No. Mater blinked. No. I don't want to tow things. But you're a tow truck. I'm also trying to be a racer. Mater's expression did not fall exactly, but it tilted. That was worse. He looked at Miles the way someone looked at a family photo that had cracked down the middle. Ain't nothing wrong with towing, Mater said, quieter than usual. Guilt hit Miles immediately. I didn't mean it like that. Kinda sounded like that. Miles looked at the tires, the cable, Mater's rusted frame, and his own matching tow rig. He had spent a day hating the parts of himself that looked most like his brother. That was unfair. Mater had been nothing but kind since the moment Miles opened his eyes. I mean, I don't want that to be all I am, Miles said. In my old life, I kept letting things decide for me. Job, fear, bad timing, whatever was easiest. Then I died before I ever did anything that felt like mine. I don't want to wake up in a new world and immediately accept another box. Mater was silent for once. Miles continued before he lost the courage. But I shouldn't have made it sound like towing is small. It isn't. You help people. You pull them out when they're stuck. That's not nothing. Mater's smile returned slowly. Well, shoot, when you say it like that, I sound important. You are important. You're just also loud before sunrise. That's a separate talent. The lesson changed shape after that. Mater showed Miles how the tow cable affected balance, not as a chore but as part of his body. When the cable swung wide, it could pull his rear offline. When he controlled it, it became counterweight. Mater made him drag tires through the dirt, then release tension, then turn while the load shifted behind him. It was miserable. It was also useful. Miles felt the physics of himself for the first time. His body was not a worse race car. It was a heavy machine that could dig into dirt, hold traction, and use momentum like a hammer. Sleek racers floated through corners. Miles had to plant himself, pull, and launch. Lightning arrived mid-morning and watched without interrupting. After 3 drills, he nodded toward Mater. He's teaching you the right thing. Miles tried not to look surprised. Towing. Control, Lightning said. A race is not just going fast. It's knowing what the vehicle can do when everything goes wrong. Mater knows wrong better than anyone. Mater beamed. That might be the nicest insult I ever got. They moved to the dirt lot again. Lightning set barrels wider apart and told Miles to run a slow loop while dragging 2 tires. The extra weight made him furious at first. He crawled through the turn. Dust puffed around his tires. The tow line tugged like someone grabbing his spine. Then something clicked. He slowed before the turn, let the tires swing outward, and used the pull to settle his rear instead of fighting it. His wheels bit into the dirt. The turn tightened. He came out straighter than before. Mater yelled so loudly, a bird took off from the courthouse roof. Miles circled again. The second run was cleaner. The third was not, because he got cocky and almost smacked a barrel into Ramon's fence, but even that taught him something. Pride was dangerous at low speed too. By afternoon, the friendly weekend dirt run had become impossible to ignore. Cars were already practicing on the old road outside town. Miles watched from a hill with Mater and Lightning while the racers kicked up dust below. You sure you only wanna watch? Mater asked. Miles tracked the cars as they entered the first bend. The farm truck from yesterday slid too wide and recovered with a laugh. A compact coupe cut inside him and gained half a length. Miles could see mistakes now, not all of them but some. Brake too late, turn too hard, accelerate before the wheels settled. The knowledge thrilled him. I want to race, he admitted, but wanting isn't enough. Lightning looked pleased. That's the first sentence every good racer learns eventually. Mater leaned against Miles. Still, watching can hurt when your heart wants to be down there. It did hurt. Miles hated standing still. He hated the way some racers glanced up and smirked at the rusty new tow truck who clearly did not belong on a starting line. He hated that part of him wanted to prove them wrong immediately. But the old him had rushed into rain and never made it home. This life required different bravery. A small delivery van spun out near the far turn. Nobody was injured, but the van's rear wheels sank into soft dirt off the road. The other racers slowed, uncertain. Mater started forward at once. "Come on." Miles followed before thinking. They reached the van together. Mater hooked up first, calm and practiced. "Easy now. Miles, take the left side and keep tension gentle." Miles obeyed. His cable caught. His engine pulled. The van rolled free. The watching cars cheered. Not race cheers, maybe, but real ones. The delivery van thanked them twice. Miles felt embarrassed, then proud, then confused that both feelings could fit in the same engine. Mater bumped him. "See, towing ain't the opposite of racing. Sometimes it's how folks learn you belong on the road at all." Miles looked down at his tow cable, dusty and useful. For the first time, he did not hate it. That evening, when Lightning asked if he wanted one more practice run, Miles nodded. "With the tires," he said. Mater's grin went wide. "Now you're thinking like a tow truck." Miles rolled to the start line of the empty practice lot. He was still not ready for a real race, but his body made a little more sense than it had yesterday, and Mater's pride no longer felt like something he needed to outrun. The flag dropped. Miles moved slowly, heavily, and with purpose. Chapter 4: The First Dirt Run. The weekend dirt run was supposed to be casual. That was what everyone kept saying, which only made Miles more suspicious. Casual events still had a starting line. Casual events still had spectators gathering along the safe side of the old road. Casual events still made engines rev louder when pride got involved. By mid-morning, half of Radiator Springs had rolled out to watch the locals throw dust at each other for bragging rights. Miles parked beside Mater near the edge of the course, telling himself for the 10th time that he was only there to watch. Mater had brought snacks he could not eat, 3 stories about races that had almost happened, and a handmade sign that read GOMILES, eventually. The word eventually had been squeezed underneath in smaller letters after Miles objected to the original version. "I appreciate the accuracy," Miles said. "Supportive and realistic," Mater replied. "That's family." Lightning McQueen rolled up on Miles's other side. "How's the engine?" "Nervous." "Good, means you're paying attention." The first run began with 6 cars lined up on the packed dirt. A farm truck, a delivery van, 2 local coupes, an old roadster, and a yellow hatchback with more confidence than traction. When the flag dropped, they surged forward in a cloud of dust. Miles watched everything: who braked early, who drifted too wide, who panicked when the road narrowed near the rock wall. The yellow hatchback spun at the second turn, recovered, and kept going while laughing at himself. The farm truck won by using steady torque instead of flashy moves. Miles found himself smiling. Then one of the coupes rolled over after the finish line and shouted, "Tow truck kid, you joining the slow run or just decorating the hill?" Mater stiffened. Lightning's eyes narrowed. Miles felt the challenge like a spark. He wanted to fire back. He wanted to enter immediately, smash through the course, and make everyone stop smirking. Instead, he inhaled through an engine that did not need air the way lungs had. "I'm watching," he called, "so I know exactly how slow I need to go to avoid copying your corner too." A few cars laughed. The coupe did not. Lightning made a small approving sound. "Not bad." "I'm trying not to be stupid," Miles muttered. "That's usually faster, in the long run." The second heat had fewer cars, and one open slot after a racer dropped out with a cracked rim. The organizer, Sheriff, looked toward the hill. "Anybody else want a practice run? Not a race for points, just 1 lap." Miles looked away. Mater did not say anything. That was what made Miles look back at him. Mater was not pushing, not pleading, not bouncing with excitement. He was simply waiting, letting Miles decide. The old fear rose again. What if he looked ridiculous? What if he flipped? What if everyone saw that his dream was too big for his frame? But watching forever was just another kind of parking. Miles rolled forward before he could talk himself out of it. One lap, practice only. Sheriff studied him. You know the rules. Stay on course, don't ram anyone, slow before the rock wall bend, and if I feel unstable, I pull out. Lightning smiled. Mater looked like he might explode from pride. Miles lined up at the far outside. The other racers were faster looking by every obvious measure. Lower, lighter, cleaner. He felt like a toolbox someone had accidentally entered into a sprint. The flag rose. His engine went quiet inside his own head. The flag dropped. Everyone jumped ahead. Miles did not chase. Lightning's voice lived in his memory. Do not copy them. He rolled into speed gradually, feeling the rear sway, letting his tires find bite. Dirt rattled against his undercarriage. The first straight opened, and for 3 seconds he forgot fear entirely. Then the first turn came. He braked early, too early. A coupe slipped ahead and laughed as it passed. Miles swallowed the anger, settled his weight, and turned wide. His tow cable swung, but not wild. He let it pull, used it, and came out cleaner than the hatchback in front of him. Mater's cheer carried across the course. The rock wall bend approached. This was where the road narrowed and the dirt softened at the edge. Miles saw tire marks from earlier spins. He saw the farm truck take the inside too sharply ahead of him and lose speed. There was space outside, rougher but wider. A race car would cut in. A tow truck could dig out. Miles aimed for the rough line. His tires hit loose dirt and sank for half a heartbeat. Panic flashed. He almost jerked away. Instead, he pulled steady, engine grinding, weight pressing down until the wheels caught. He came through slower than the others but stable, and when the road straightened, his momentum carried him past the hatchback, still recovering from a slide. He was not winning, not close. He was racing. The final stretch blurred with dust and sunlight. The coupe who had mocked him was ahead by 2 lengths, glancing back more than he should. Miles saw the mistake before it happened. The coupe entered the last bend too hot, tried to show off, and skidded wide. Miles stayed low, slow, and ugly. His tow hook bounced. His frame groaned. He rolled through the inside gap with inches to spare and crossed the finish line 4th out of 5. 4th place should not have felt like victory. It did anyway. Mater reached him first, nearly crashing from excitement. You passed somebody on purpose. Miles laughed, dusty and shaking. 4th place, practice lap, very glamorous. Lightning rolled up with a grin. 4th place with no crash, no panic correction, and 1 smart pass. That's a result. The mocking coupe avoided looking at him. The farm truck gave a respectful nod. The delivery van honked twice in celebration. Miles looked at the course behind him. Every instinct wanted to run it again immediately, faster this time, harder, better. But he could feel the strain in his suspension and the heat in his engine. Discipline mattered more than hunger. 1 lap, he said. That was the deal. Mater's eyes widened. You sure? No, Miles admitted. That's why I'm stopping. Lightning's approval was quiet but real. Good call. Tomorrow we work on corner entry. As the town drifted back toward Radiator Springs, Miles stayed a moment at the finish line. He had not become a racer in 1 lap. He had not proven everyone wrong. He had only proven that the dream did not break the second it touched dirt. That was enough for 1 day. Mater parked beside him, their rusted sides catching the sunset. Proud of your brother, Mater said. Miles watched the old road disappear into desert gold. I want to do it again. Mater laughed softly. Figured you might. For the first time since dying, Miles did not feel like a soul trapped in the wrong machine. He felt like a beginner at the start of a road. Chapter 5, Dust and Talk. The morning after Miles's first practice lap, Radiator Springs treated him differently. Not dramatically. Nobody hung banners or called him a champion. He had finished fourth in a casual dirt run, not won the Piston Cup. But when he rolled past Flo's V8 Cafe, the delivery van he had helped pull free honked a greeting. The farm truck from the race gave him a short nod. Even the coop who had mocked him looked away instead of saying something clever. It was not respect yet. It was the first crack in being dismissed. Miles tried not to enjoy it too much. Mater failed completely at that. "Did you see that?" Mater whispered loudly as they rolled toward the practice lot. "Dusty nodded at you. Dusty don't nod at just anybody. One time he nodded at a cactus, but that was because he thought it was Sheriff from far away." Miles kept his eyes on the road. "I finished fourth." "You finished fourth on purpose. Big difference." Lightning McQueen was waiting at the dirt lot with 3 barrels, a measuring tape, and the expression of a racer who had decided mercy was bad for development. "Today we work on corner entry," Lightning said. Miles stopped beside the first barrel. "Good morning to you too." "Good morning. You brake too early, turn too late, and trust momentum only after it has already carried you somewhere inconvenient." Mater leaned toward Miles. "That's race car for I believe in you." "I know," Miles said. "Somehow that makes it worse." The drill was simple. Approach the barrel, brake at a marked line, turn around it, and accelerate out without sliding wide. Simple drills, Miles had learned, existed to expose complicated failures. On the first run, he braked too hard and nearly stalled. On the second, he entered too fast and plowed dirt over the line. On the third, his tow cable swung late and slapped the barrel so hard it rolled away. Mater chased it down proudly. "Good hit. Terrible turn, but good hit." Lightning reset the barrel. "Your rear is telling you what the front already did wrong. Listen earlier." Miles rolled back to the start. The desert sun warmed his hood, dust clung to his tires. Frustration pushed at him, but he forced it down. In his old life, frustration had made him rush. Rushing had killed him. Here, every mistake gave him information if he stayed calm enough to use it. He approached again. Brake before fear. Settle the weight. Turn with the whole frame. Let the cable swing, then catch it before it dragged him wide. Accelerate only when the tires were pointed where he actually wanted to go. This time, the turn was ugly, but controlled. Lightning nodded once. There. It should not have felt as good as it did. They repeated the drill until the lot was carved with looping tire marks. Mater practiced beside him, not to show off, but to demonstrate how a tow truck could let weight settle into dirt instead of skidding over it. Mater was not polished. He bounced, rattled, laughed, and sometimes took lines that looked ridiculous. But he understood rough ground with an instinct Miles could not fake. By noon, Miles finally asked the question that had been sitting under his hood since yesterday. "Why aren't you the racer?" Mater blinked. "Ha. You're better at this than you act. You know dirt. You know recovery. You read bad roads like lightning reads asphalt. Why aren't you chasing races?" Mater looked toward town, where the old road shimmered in the heat. "I like racing. I like watching lightning. I like going fast when the mood hits. But I also like Bane, where folks know where to find me when they need a tow." Miles waited. Mater's voice softened. "Dreams don't gotta all point away from home. Sometimes mine point right back at it." Miles had no answer ready. His own dream still felt like escape. From death, from fear, from being seen as junk. Mater's dream sounded less like escape and more like belonging. Lightning, who had been pretending not to listen, rolled closer. "That's why you need to know what racing means to you before it starts costing things." Miles looked down at his tires. "I want to prove I'm not stuck being what I woke up as." "That's a start," Lightning said, "not a finish." The afternoon drill added a small load, 2 tires tied to Miles's tow cable. He hated it on principle until the first turn. The drag made him slower, yes, but it also taught him timing. If he accelerated too early, the tires yanked his rear crooked. If he waited too long, he lost all momentum. The line between control and hesitation became something he could feel. Dusty, the farm truck, arrived near the end of practice and watched 3 runs without comment. On the 4th, Miles entered clean, carried weight through the turn, and exited with the tires sliding behind him in a neat arc. Dusty gave another nod. Mater gasped. 2 nods, that's practically a speech. Dusty snorted. Don't get proud, he's still slow. Miles surprised himself by smiling. I know. Good, Dusty said. Slow can be fixed. Dumb takes longer. Lightning laughed under his breath. When the sun started dropping, Miles rolled one final loop without the tire load. He was not fast, but the body made more sense now. Heavy front, swinging rear, stubborn grip, engine that preferred building force over snapping into speed. A tow truck would never dance like lightning, but maybe it could hit a dirt corner like a hammer, finding the right angle. Mater parked beside him as the dust settled. You still don't want to tow anything? Mater asked. Miles looked at the cable behind him. I don't want towing to be my whole life, but I think it's part of how I race. Mater smiled, smaller than usual and more sincere. That sounds about right. Miles watched the practice lot fade into evening shadow. For the first time, the road ahead did not look like a place he had to outrun his body. It looked like a place to learn what his body could do. Chapter 6. The line he could not copy. Lightning took Miles onto asphalt the next day. That was the first mistake. At least, it felt like a mistake halfway through the first drill, when Miles entered a paved corner with the same heavy confidence he had used on dirt, and immediately discovered that asphalt did not forgive a tow truck in the same language. His tires squealed. His rear swung too late. He corrected, overcorrected, and came to a stop facing the wrong direction while Mater watched from the shoulder with both headlights wide. Lightning rolled over slowly. What did we learn? Miles stared at the road. Pavement hates me. Pavement tells the truth faster. Try again. Miles groaned, turned around, and returned to the start. The course was a stretch of old Route 66 outside town, marked with cones Luigi and Guido had donated under protest after making Lightning promise nobody would flatten them. The point was not speed. Lightning wanted Miles to feel the difference between dirt grip and asphalt grip, between sliding through loose ground and respecting a surface that grabbed hard until it suddenly did not. Miles hated how exposed it made him feel. On dirt, being heavy helped. On asphalt, weight punished every late decision. He could not dig his way out. He had to be precise earlier. Mater tried to help by shouting advice. Turn better. Miles called back, specific, useful, thank you. You're welcome. Lightning demonstrated the line once. He flowed through the cones with almost insulting ease. Brake, turn in, apex, exit. Smooth, balanced, confident. Watching him made Miles want to copy everything. Then Miles tried. He failed before the second cone. Lightning did not laugh. That helped. Mater did not laugh either, though he did make a sympathetic noise that sounded worse. You're chasing my line, Lightning said. Stop. You told me to watch you. To understand the idea, not steal the shape. My line belongs to my body. Yours needs to belong to yours. Miles sat silent on the warm asphalt. That sentence annoyed him because it was obviously true and therefore harder to argue with. They changed the cones, wider entry, later rotation, more room for the rear to settle before Miles asked the front to pull. Lightning made him start slower than walking pace. Miles complained until the first clean run, then stopped complaining because clean felt better than proud. By the 5th run, he was moving at a reasonable speed. By the 8th, he could feel the difference between steering too sharply and loading the suspension properly. By the 10th, he made it through without knocking over a cone. Guido cheered like Miles had won a championship. Luigi inspected the cones with deep suspicion. No damage. This is acceptable. Miles rolled to a stop beside them. High praise from the cone department. Lightning pulled up next to him. You're improving. I still feel slow. You are slow. You're also less wrong. That's progress. Mater nodded sagely. Less wrong is how I learned most things. During the lunch break, Ramon invited Miles into the paint shop and lifted him just enough to inspect his undercarriage. Miles did not enjoy being stared at from below, but Ramon kept the mood casual. You want speed, Ramon said, but speed ain't the first thing this frame needs. You got tired bushings, uneven alignment, and a tow rig that swings like it has opinions. It does have opinions, Miles said, mostly rude ones. Ramon laughed. We clean up the basics first, nothing flashy. No pretending you're a race car. We make you the best version of what you are. There it was again, what you are. Miles had spent his first days thinking that phrase sounded like a sentence. Now it was starting to sound like a blueprint. The repairs were small. Tightened bolts, fresh alignment, clean joints, better tire pressure, and a check on the tow rig so it moved smoothly instead of jerking late. No miracle upgrade. No secret racing engine. When Ramon lowered him back down, Miles looked almost the same. But when he rolled outside, the road felt clearer beneath him. Whoa, he said before he could stop himself. Mater brightened. Good woe or bad woe? Good, I think. Everything answers faster. Lightning smiled. Now we test it. The afternoon runs were still difficult, but the changes mattered. Miles could feel mistakes earlier. The rear did not surprise him as often. His braking was still conservative, yet now he could release into a turn without the whole frame arguing back. On the final run, Lightning set a simple target time. Not fast by racing standards. Fast enough that Miles would have to trust the repairs, the line, and himself. The cones waited in the sunset. Mater parked near the finish. Remember, if you knock one over, we can just say it jumped. Miles laughed, then focused. He launched steady. First cone, brake early but not too early. Turn, let the weight settle. Second cone, open the line wider than Lightning would. Third cone, feel the tow rig swing and catch it with throttle instead of fear. The final bend came at him faster than expected. His old panic reached for the brakes. He did not slam them. He breathed through the engine, eased off, turned, and powered out. The finish line passed beneath his tires. Lightning checked the time. You made it, barely. Miles rolled to a stop, engine hot, frame buzzing. Barely counts. In racing, barely is usually where learning lives. Mater rushed over, cheering. Luigi declared the cones unharmed. Guido gave Miles a tiny victorious salute. Ramon looked pleased in the quiet way of someone who knew his work had mattered. Miles looked back at the course. He had not copied Lightning's line. He had made an ugly, heavy tow truck line and survived it at speed. That felt better than copying perfection. Later, as the town lights came on, Miles parked outside the garage beside Mater. You think I'll ever be good enough for a real race? Miles asked. Mater did not answer right away. For once, he seemed to take the question seriously instead of throwing confidence at it like confetti. Yeah, Mater said at last, but not 'cause you're secretly something else. 'Cause you're stubborn enough to become good at baying you. Miles watched the road glow under the neon. That answer stayed with him longer than praise would have. Chapter 7, Dusty's Offer. Dusty waited until Lightning left before he rolled closer to Miles. That alone made Miles suspicious. The farm truck had the look of someone about to say something practical, uncomfortable, or both. Mater was busy near the garage telling Guido a story about the time he accidentally taught a tractor to moonwalk, so Miles had no convenient interruption to save him. Dusty stopped beside the practice lot and looked over the cone marks in the asphalt. McQueen's teaching you clean lines. Good. Miles turned slightly. That sounded almost positive. Don't get used to it. Dusty nodded toward the desert road outside town. Clean lines won't save you when the road turns ugly. Miles glanced at the dirt lot. We have been training dirt. You've been training friendly dirt. Packed, watched, measured, and rescued when you mess up. Real back roads aren't friendly. They rut, wash out, throw stones, hide soft shoulders, and punish a heavy frame that thinks confidence is the same as control. That was too accurate to dismiss. Mater rolled over, suddenly attentive. Dusty knows the old mining roads better than anybody. He once found a shortcut so rough, even my teeth got nervous. You don't have nerves in your teeth, Miles said. Then why were they scared? Dusty ignored that. There's a maintenance loop behind Carburetor County, not a race. No crowd, no points, just 10 miles of bad road. If you want to learn what your body can do, run it slow with me tomorrow. Miles felt the offer settle inside him. 10 miles sounded small compared to the races he imagined, but the way Dusty said it made the loop feel like a test with teeth. Why help me? Miles asked. Dusty looked toward town, where Mater laughed loudly enough to echo off the garage. Because Mater believes in people before they earn it. Somebody should make sure his brother earns it properly. Miles almost bristled, then stopped. Dusty was not insulting him. He was setting a standard. Tomorrow, Miles said. The next morning, the sky was still grey when Dusty led Miles and Mater out past the last buildings of Radiator Springs. Lightning did not come. That was part of the point. This was not about copying a champion. It was about learning from roads that did not care who was watching. The maintenance loop began as cracked pavement, then became gravel, then dirt packed hard by years of heat. Miles started too carefully. Dusty let him. Mater trailed behind, unusually quiet, tow hook bouncing gently. After the first mile, Dusty called back. You're staring at the road right in front of your tires. Look farther. Miles lifted his attention. The road changed before it reached him. Darker dirt where it held moisture, loose pale gravel near bends, a rut cutting across the right side like a trap waiting for panic. Seeing it earlier made him feel less hunted. At mile 3, the trail narrowed along a dry wash. Miles slowed too much, lost momentum, and sank one rear tire into soft sand. His first instinct was shame. Mater started forward. Dusty stopped him. Let him solve it. Miles forced himself not to snap. He checked the angle, felt the tire buried at the edge, and remembered the tire load drills. Do not fight straight forward. Rock gently. Let the weight settle. Use the tow truck torque instead of pretending to be light. He reversed an inch, turned slightly, eased forward, and climbed out with a grunt of engine strain. Mater cheered. Dusty only nodded. By mile 6, Miles was tired in a deep mechanical way. Every joint felt awake. Every correction mattered. Dusty made him cross shallow ruts at angles, brake before loose downhill turns, and accelerate only when the rear stopped arguing with the front. No crowd, no jokes from rivals, no heroic speed. Just road, weight, choice, and consequence. The second run was worse because Miles expected it to be easier. He entered the wash with too much confidence, saw a line of loose stones too late, and felt the whole rear of his frame twitch sideways. Dusty did not shout. Mater did not rescue him. Miles had to slow, breathe through the engine noise, and let the truck settle before the slide became a spin. When he finally stopped safely, anger rushed up again. This time he did not let it drive. He marked the stones in his mind, backed up, and repeated the section at half speed until the problem became visible instead of personal. Dusty rolled beside him afterward and said, "That's the difference. Road don't insult you. It just tells you what you missed." Miles hated how useful that was. Near the final stretch, Dusty pulled beside him. "You're still slow." Miles huffed. "I noticed. But you stopped panicking when the road changed. That's worth more than shaving seconds right now." Mater rolled up on the other side, beaming. That's practically a parade from him. Miles looked back at the dusty trail. He had not won anything. He had not even raced. But he understood something he had not understood yesterday. Racing was not only the bright track and the finish line. It was preparation on roads that humbled you before anyone clapped. On the way back, Mater took the rear instead of Dusty and made Miles call out each surface change before they reached it. Pale gravel, hard dirt, soft shoulder, broken pavement, blind dip. The exercise felt childish for the first minute and essential by the fifth. Saying the hazards allowed forced Miles to look ahead instead of reacting late. By the time Radiator Springs appeared in the distance, he was exhausted, dusty, and thinking 3 turns farther than he had that morning. Dusty turned toward town. Again tomorrow, if you can handle it. Miles smiled through the exhaustion. I'll be here. Mater bumped him gently. My brother's getting stubborn in the useful way. For once, Miles accepted the description without arguing. He needed that. Chapter 8. The Rival with Clean Paint. The rival arrived on a trailer, so polished it reflected the whole town upside down. Radiator Springs had seen tourists, racers, lost delivery trucks, and the occasional big city car who thought the town existed as scenery for their vacation. This one rolled down from the trailer like he expected applause before introducing himself. He was a silver rally coupe with blue striping, low suspension, fresh tires, and sponsor decals, arranged so neatly Miles felt personally attacked by the paint job. Name's Sterling Vale, the coupe said, loud enough for everyone outside Flo's to hear. I heard this town had a tow truck trying to become a racer, thought it was a joke. Then I realized jokes are usually faster. Mater frowned. That ain't very neighborly. Sterling looked at Mater, then at Miles. Which one of you is the aspiring miracle? Miles felt every eye turn toward him. Yesterday's backroad training had left dust in seams Ramon had not cleaned yet. Besides Sterling, Miles looked like a toolbox with tires. Me, he said. Sterling smiled, brave or confused. Lightning McQueen rolled up from the garage, expression calm but sharp. Sterling's passing through for a regional qualifier. He likes attention more than oxygen. Winning brings attention, Sterling said. You remember winning, don't you, McQueen? The air tightened. Miles saw Mater's face lose some of its humor. Lightning only smiled. I remember training, Lightning said. You should try it between speeches. Sterling laughed and turned back to Miles. Let's see what your student can do. 1 lap on the practice loop, nothing official. I want to know if the rumor is funny enough to tell twice. Miles almost accepted. The answer rose hot and immediate. Then he saw Lightning watching him, waiting. He remembered stopping after 1 lap because discipline mattered. He remembered Dusty saying confidence was not control. No, Miles said. Sterling blinked. No. I ran 10 miles of bad road yesterday, and I'm training corner work today. I'm not wrecking my schedule because you need entertainment. For a second, nobody spoke. Then Flo laughed first. Mater followed. Even Lightning looked pleased. Sterling's smile thinned. Scared, then. Obviously, Miles said. You're faster than me. Cleaner, lighter, built for this. If I race you today, I lose and learn nothing except that paint reflects sunlight. I already knew that. Sterling did not like being denied the easy victory. That was satisfying in a way Miles tried not to enjoy too much. Qualifiers in 2 weeks, Sterling said. Local open slot. If you're still pretending by then, enter. He rolled away before Miles could answer. Mater leaned close. You gonna enter. Miles watched the silver coupe park by the motel like a knife laid on a table. I don't know. Lightning moved beside him. Good answer. Means you might think before deciding. The rest of the day became harder because Sterling watched. Not openly at first. He pretended to inspect his tires, talk to his crew, or admire his reflection in Ramon's window. But whenever Miles ran a drill, the silver coupe's eyes followed. Miles hated it. He clipped cones he should have cleared. braked too early, accelerated too late. On one turn, he got angry and tried to force speed through the corner, sliding wide enough that Lightning ordered him to stop. "You're racing him in your head," Lightning said. Miles stared at the cone he had nearly crushed. "He's laughing at me." "Probably. Does that change the line?" "No." "Does it change your braking point?" "No." "Then why are you letting it drive?" The question landed like a wrench, dropped onto concrete. Mater rolled closer, but did not interrupt. That mattered. Everyone was letting Miles choose whether to listen. He returned to the start. This time he refused to look at Sterling. Brake, settle, turn, cable, swing, throttle. The run was not fast, but it was clean. The next one was cleaner. By sunset, his times were only slightly better, yet his control had returned. Sterling drove past on his way to the motel. Still slow. Miles did not answer until Sterling had almost passed. "Yes," he said, "but I'm less wrong than yesterday." Sterling scoffed and kept going. Lightning's smile was small. "That line sounds familiar." "Good advice gets stolen," Miles said. The practical answer came from Ramon, who looked at the qualifier flyer and immediately started listing everything that could fail. Cooling under pressure, tire wear on the gravel finish, toe rig chatter on asphalt transitions. Miles expected the list to scare him away. Instead, it made the race feel less like a fantasy and more like work that could be measured. Luigi offered tire advice with the solemn gravity of a priest handling sacred objects. Guido demonstrated a pit stop so quickly Miles almost missed it. Even Flo promised to keep the town from turning the whole thing into a parade before Miles had earned one. The support made him feel stronger and more accountable at the same time. If he entered, he would not just be defending his own pride. He would be carrying everyone who had decided the rusty tow truck was worth their time. That night, Mater found him staring at the qualifier flyer taped to the garage wall. 2 weeks. Local open slot. Dirt and asphalt mixed course. Sterling would enter, likely win, and tell the story of the tow truck who knew better than to try. Miles did not need to beat Sterling in 2 weeks. That was not realistic. But maybe he needed to show up prepared enough that losing meant something useful. Mater parked beside him. Dreams get heavier when they get dates on 'em. Miles looked at the flyer. Yeah. Still want it. Miles thought about the crash that killed him, the road he had not respected, the new body he had started to understand, and the rival who made him want to prove too much too quickly. "I want to enter," he said, "but only if Lightning and Dusty think I can do it without being stupid." Mater nodded proudly. "That might be the smartest, scary thing you said yet." Outside, Sterling's trailer gleamed under the motel lights. Miles looked away from it and back to the flyer. 2 weeks was not enough time to become great. It might be enough time to become ready for the next lesson. Chapter 9. 2 weeks to get ready. Lightning did not say yes immediately. That annoyed Miles more than a no would have. A no could be argued with. Silence made him sit in his own reasons and inspect them for cracks. They stood outside the garage the morning after Sterling Vale challenged him without officially challenging him. The qualifier flyer hung from a toolbox between them. Mater watched from behind Miles, vibrating with restrained excitement. Dusty sat near the road, looking like he already knew what the answer should be and wanted Miles to suffer long enough to find it. Lightning read the flyer again. Mixed course. Dirt opening, asphalt middle, gravel finish. Amateur open slot. Regional scouts watching. Sterling will treat it like a stage. "I know," Miles said. "You probably finish near the back." "I know. You might get embarrassed." Miles looked at Sterling's trailer across town, then back at Lightning. "I know." Lightning studied him. Then why enter? Because Sterling had laughed. Because Miles wanted to prove Rust could move. Because the idea of standing still while someone else defined him made his engine burn. Those answers were true. They were also not good enough. Miles took longer before speaking. Because I need a real target, not to win, to measure what training means when the road has pressure on it. If I wait until I'm sure I won't look bad, I'll never start. But if you think it's actually unsafe, I won't do it. Mater made a tiny pain sound, but stayed quiet. Dusty gave the smallest approving nod. Lightning finally smiled. That's the answer I was waiting for. We train for the qualifier. We do not train to beat Sterling. We train to finish clean, make decisions under pressure, and come out better than you entered. Miles felt relief, so strong his suspension dipped. Schedule starts now, Lightning said. The next 2 weeks became the first real structure of Miles's second life. Morning belonged to Dusty. Bad roads, loose gravel, ruts, and traction changes. Dusty made him read surfaces before reaching them. If Miles stared too close, Dusty barked at him. If he panicked, Dusty made him redo the section slowly until fear stopped pretending to be instinct. Midday belonged to Lightning. Lines, breaking points, cone drills, and timed runs. Lightning cared about repeatability more than heroic bursts. 1 good lap meant little. 3 consistent laps meant progress. Afternoons belonged to Ramon, Luigi, and Guido. Nothing illegal, nothing flashy. Better tire matching, reinforced mounts, cleaner tow rig movement. A cooling check after Miles overheated on the 3rd day trying to attack a hill like anger created horsepower. Evenings belonged to Mater. That surprised Miles most. Mater did not run formal drills. He took Miles through town, down old service roads, around forgotten shortcuts, and into strange little corners of Radiator Springs history. He taught him where the pavement buckled after summer heat, where sand gathered after windstorms, and which hills made heavy vehicles feel lighter if approached with patience. "You know a lot," Miles said one evening. Mater looked almost bashful. "Folks think being silly means you ain't paying attention. I just don't always tell 'em I am." Miles carried that with him. Sterling watched sometimes. He made comments, fewer than before because Miles stopped reacting. The silver coupe remained faster in every visible way. His practice laps were sharp, controlled, and smooth. He looked like what racing was supposed to look like. Miles looked like work. On the 6th day, work failed him. He entered the gravel finish section too hot during a timed practice and clipped a marker hard enough to bend it. The impact startled him, and he jerked into a slide that ended with his rear wheels stuck in soft shoulder dirt. Nothing broke, but the silence afterward felt worse than damage. Miles waited for Lightning's correction, for Dusty's bluntness, for Mater's worried encouragement. Instead, Sterling laughed from the roadside. "Qualifier's going to be fun," Sterling called. "For everyone watching, anyway." Miles's engine revved before he could stop it. He wanted to throw himself back onto the course and prove the mistake meant nothing. Lightning moved in front of him. "No. I can run it again." I said no. Miles glared. "Because I messed up. Because you want the next lap to be revenge. Revenge drives worse than fear." The words hit too close. Mater hooked Miles's rear gently and helped pull him free. Nobody made jokes. That helped and hurt at the same time. They ended practice early. Miles hated it until the evening, when Mater took him to the overlook above town. Radiator Springs glowed below them in warm neon, small and stubborn against the desert dark. "I don't want to be a joke," Miles admitted. Mater was quiet for a long moment. "Then don't let somebody else decide what the punchline is." Miles looked at him. Mater shrugged. "You mess up, you learn. You finish last, you learn. You quit because a shiny fella laughs, then maybe he got to write the joke for you." It was the kind of wisdom Mater hid inside plain words. The next morning, Miles returned to the gravel section and ran it slowly. Then again, then again. No drama, no revenge. By the 5th run, the mistake became information instead of a wound. On the final day before the qualifier, Lightning timed him on a full mixed practice loop. Miles was not fast. He was consistent. Dusty checked the surface marks and grunted approval. Ramon declared the frame as ready as it could be without lying to anybody. Luigi said the tires were respectable. Guido gave 2 thumbs up, which meant more than the entire speech Sterling gave himself near the motel. Mater parked beside Miles at sunset. Nervous. Yes. Good. Means you're paying attention. Miles laughed. Everyone keeps saying that. Smart folks repeat the important stuff. Across town, Sterling's trailer gleamed again. Tomorrow, Miles would line up against him and others who belonged on a track far more obviously than a rusty tow truck did. Miles still wanted to prove something, but the thing had changed. He did not need to prove he was secretly built like them. He needed to prove he could show up as himself and drive the line he had earned. Chapter 10: The Qualifier Line. The morning of the qualifier arrived with too many spectators and not enough air. Miles knew that was ridiculous. He did not breathe the way a human did anymore. His engine pulled in what it needed, his radiator handled heat, and his body translated nerves into vibration, idle, and tire pressure. Still, as radiator springs filled with visiting cars, local families, amateur racers, and a few scouts with clipboards, he felt like the whole desert had pressed down on his hood. Mater parked beside him near the registration table. You look like you're thinking, so hard your paint's gonna peel faster. My paint is already peeling. Then you're ahead of schedule. Miles looked across the lot. Sterling Vale gleamed under a pop-up canopy, surrounded by a small crew polishing panels that were already spotless. The silver rally coupe caught Miles looking and gave him a lazy smile. Miles looked away first, not because he was afraid, but because lightning had told him not to waste focus feeding Sterling's ego. Registration, Lightning said, rolling up with a clipboard tucked under one tire. Then inspection, then course walk, no improvising. I know. Dusty appeared on Miles's other side. Say the goal. Miles stared at him. Now. Now. Mater leaned closer, suddenly serious too. Miles let the noise of the crowd blur behind him. Finish clean, make decisions under pressure, learn where I fail, do not race Sterling in my head. Lightning nodded. Good. Also, Mater added, try not to explode. That was implied. The inspection official looked skeptical the moment Miles rolled forward. That was not new. Miles had seen the expression enough times now to recognize the whole sequence. Surprise at the rust, doubt at the tow rig, curiosity when he did not act embarrassed, and then a careful second look when Lightning McQueen personally stood nearby. Tow cable secured, the official asked. Ramon answered before Miles could. Reinforced bracket, cleaned movement, safety latch checked twice. Luigi added, tires balanced as well as possible for a gentleman of substance. Miles glanced at him. Gentleman of substance. Heavy sounded rude. Guido gave a solemn thumbs up from beside the tire rack. The official checked the mounts, tires, steering response, and cooling system. Every second felt like being judged for existing. Miles forced himself not to apologize for the body he had. When the official finally marked the sheet approved, Mater cheered like the race had already ended. Sterling rolled past during the course walk. Approved. That's generous. Miles kept his eyes on the first dirt section. You should complain. Maybe they'll give you a trophy for inspection commentary. Mater made a strangled laughing sound. Sterling's smile cooled. The course was worse in person than on the flyer. It began with a dirt launch into a wide bend, shifted to cracked asphalt through a fast S-turn, dropped onto gravel near the old service road, then finished with a rough straight that punished anyone who entered it unbalanced. Miles walked it slowly with Lightning, Dusty, and Mater, calling out surface changes like he had practiced. Loose dirt outside first bend, he said. Harder line near the inside, but crowded. Asphalt transition after the marker cone. Broken pavement on the right. Gravel finish has a rut after the second flag. Dusty nodded. Look farther on the finish. That rut hides until you're almost on it. Lightning pointed to the S-stern. This is where you lose time if you panic. You need your wider line. Do not chase the coops. I know. You'll want to. Miles looked at the clean black marks already left by faster practice cars. I know. By the time they returned to the start area, the first heat was lining up. Miles was in the third heat with Sterling and 4 other amateurs. That felt unfair until Lightning reminded him that racing rarely cared about fair. The first 2 heats passed in a blur of dust, cheers, and mistakes. One compact racer spun on the gravel. A pickup clipped a cone and recovered. Sterling watched all of it with amused confidence, as if every error confirmed a private theory about everyone else's inferiority. Then the announcer called the third heat. Miles rolled to the line. Mater came close enough to bump his side gently. You ain't gotta become somebody else out there. Miles looked at him. I know. Just mackin' sure. Sometimes folks forget when a flag drops. That was exactly the sort of simple sentence that hit harder than it should. Lightning stopped in front of him. First corner decides your mood, not your race. If it goes badly, keep driving. Dusty added, road changes. You change earlier. Miles nodded once. Sterling took the lane beside him, engine purring. Try not to block the scenic view when I lap you. Miles looked forward. Try not to need my tow cable when you overperform for the crowd. The flagman raised the green. Sound narrowed. The spectators became color. Sterling became a silver shape at the edge of Miles's vision. The dirt ahead mattered more than all of them. The flag dropped. Sterling launched like a blade. Miles launched like a hammer, learning where to fall. The faster cars surged ahead immediately. Miles felt the old humiliation reach for him, but he held his line. First bend, brake before fear, settle the weight. A yellow coupe cut inside too sharply and sprayed dirt. Miles stayed wide, slower but stable, and came out ahead of a compact that had overcorrected. Not last. Not the point. The asphalt transition hit hard. His tires grabbed with a jolt. He remembered Chapter 6's lesson in his bones. Do not copy Lightning. Do not copy Sterling. Do not pretend. He opened the line wider through the S-stern. It cost speed but kept the rear under him. Ahead, Sterling was already fighting for first. Miles did not chase. The gravel section arrived with a roar beneath his tires. Dusty had been right. The rut hid until the last moment. Miles saw the shadow early enough to shift left, not gracefully, but soon enough. The compact behind him hit the rut wrong and bounced wide. The finish straight opened. Miles pushed. His engine strained, heavy frame shaking, tow rig steady. He crossed the line fourth in his heat. The crowd reaction was not wild. It was better than wild. It was surprised, then approving. Miles rolled past the finish and did not know whether to laugh or collapse. Sterling had finished first. Of course he had. But when the silver coupe looked back, he was not smiling as much. Miles had finished clean. That was the goal. That had to be enough. Chapter 11. Fourth place means something. Fourth place did not sound impressive until Miles heard the official read the heat results. Sterling Vale first, a green coupe second, dusty-looking roadster third, Miles fourth, compact fifth, yellow coupe sixth after a cone penalty. Miles waited for disappointment to hit. It came, but not in the shape he expected. He did not feel crushed. He felt hungry. Not the panicked hunger to prove everyone wrong in one impossible leap, but the focused hunger of seeing exactly where the next work waited. Mater reached him before anyone else. Fourth and clean. You hear that? Clean. Miles tried to look calm. I heard. I don't think you heard loud enough. Mater honked once, startling a nearby spectator. Miles laughed before he could stop himself. Lightning rolled in slower, eyes sharp with analysis. You gave up time at the asphalt transition. Hello to you too. You also read the gravel rut early and avoided the compact's mistake. That saved your finish. Dusty nodded. Backroad training paid off. Ramon looked over the tow rig and gave an approving tap. Nothing shook loose. That's a victory for my bracket work. Luigi inspected the tires and sighed. They suffered nobly. Guido patted one tire like a battlefield medic. Miles let all of it settle. He had not won. He had not even placed in the top 3. But the people who mattered were not acting like he had failed. They were treating the race like data, like the first real measurement of a future. Sterling rolled over with his crew behind him. The silver coupe's smile had returned, but it looked more deliberate now. Congratulations, Sterling said. You finished a race designed for beginners. Miles met his eyes. Correct, I am a beginner. The answer removed some of Sterling's leverage. He wanted shame and found none ready for him. Don't get comfortable, Sterling said. Clean and slow still loses. I know, Miles said. That's why I train. Sterling's expression tightened. For the first time, he looked less like a car mocking a novelty and more like a racer noticing an inconvenience. The next heats ran while Miles cooled down. He watched differently now. Before, he had watched races like proof of everything he was not. Now he watched them as problems with moving answers. A hatchback braked too late because he feared being passed. A roadster took a beautiful line and lost traction because the gravel changed under him. Sterling's second run, part of the qualifying showcase, was fast and almost perfect, except for one moment where he clipped the edge of the rough straight harder than necessary, because he wanted the crowd to see how aggressively he could recover. Miles noticed. Lightning noticed Miles noticing. Say it, Lightning said. He performs, Miles replied, even when he doesn't need to. And you. Miles looked down at his dusty hood. I react to being watched. Not as much today, but I still feel it. Good. Know the weakness before it chooses for you. The final amateur results put Miles near the lower middle overall. Respectable for a first official event, nowhere near championship talk, and exactly the kind of result that could be built on without lying. Flo insisted that counted as cause for drinks at the cafe. Mater declared it a celebration. Miles argued that fourth in a heat and lower middle overall did not deserve celebration. Flo looked at him over her counter. Honey, around here we celebrate people doing hard things honestly. Winning's extra. That shut him up. The evening became smaller than Miles expected. No parade, no grand speech. Just Radiator Springs residents drifting by to say he looked good out there, or that his gravel save was neat, or that he should watch the asphalt transition next time. Even Dusty gave him a quiet, "You didn't embarrass the road," which Mater translated as high praise. Later, Miles found himself parked outside the garage, staring at the qualifier flyer now marked with his official time. The numbers were not flattering, they were real. Mater parked beside him. You okay? I thought finishing clean would feel like enough. It does, mostly, Miles paused. But now I want more. Mater smiled. That's how roads get you. You drive 1 mile and suddenly there are all them other miles looking at you. I don't want to become Sterling. Then don't. Simple, not easy, but simple. Lightning joined them after a while, parking with the tired quiet of someone who had spent the day watching more than speaking. There's a regional development series, he said. Miles turned so fast his suspension creaked. What? Small events, mixed surfaces, amateur-friendly but serious enough to teach you. If you want to keep going, that's the next realistic step. Not pro racing, not fame, just more structured competition. Miles looked at Mater, then at the road, then at the timesheet. A week ago, he had barely known how to turn. Today, he had finished a real qualifier without crashing. The gap between those facts scared him. It also made the future feel less imaginary. What would it cost? Miles asked. Lightning's expression said he liked the question. Time, Work, repairs, losing, probably embarrassment, definitely discipline. Mater added, snacks for the support crew. You can't eat snacks. Emotional snacks. Miles laughed, then looked back at the flyer. In his old life, he had waited for confidence before changing. It never came. In this life, motion came first, confidence somewhere behind it, catching up slowly. I want to try, he said. Lightning nodded. Then tomorrow we review the race and find the first thing to fix. Mater groaned. Tomorrow, can't we bask? Dusty, passing by on the road, called, basking makes rust worse. Miles watched them argue and felt something settle inside him that was not victory, exactly. It was belonging, with a direction attached. Fourth place meant something because it was honest. Now he had to become better than honest. That mattered. Chapter 12. Reviewing the damage. The morning after the qualifier, Lightning did not let Miles touch a track. That felt unfair until Miles saw the table waiting inside Ramon's shop. It was covered with notes, a rough sketch of the qualifier course, tire temperature marks, split times, and one bent cone that Luigi insisted had been emotionally damaged by a different racer, not Miles. Today is review, Lightning said. Miles stopped at the door. Review sounds like school. Racing is school with more expensive mistakes. Park. Mater parked beside him with a cup of oil he did not need, but claimed helped him think. Dusty leaned near the open door, half in sunlight. Ramon had Miles's inspection notes. Luigi and Guido guarded the tires like priests protecting relics. Lightning pointed to the course sketch. Tell me where you lost time. Miles looked at the map. The old version of him wanted to say everywhere. The new version knew that answer was lazy. Launch was slow but controlled, Miles said. First dirt bend was safe. I lost time at the asphalt transition because I braced too much. The S-turn was wide but stable. Gravel finish was better because I saw the rut early. Finish straight was weak because I waited too long to accelerate out. Lightning nodded. Good, now tell me what matters most first. Miles hesitated. The transition, dirt to asphalt. If I freeze there, every mixed course will punish me. Dusty grunted approval. And the finish. I need to trust the exit sooner, but not before the rear settles. Mater leaned toward Guido. He's talking all professional now. I'm proud and a little scared. The review lasted 2 hours. They did not talk about beating Sterling. They talked about repeatable decisions, how early Miles saw surface changes, where his tow rig began to swing, when his engine strained from useful effort versus panic. Ramon showed him scuff marks under the rear mount and explained that his tow assembly was stable but still wasting motion. Can you fix it? Miles asked. Sure, Ramon said, but fix ain't always adding more. Sometimes it's tarkin, slop out, so the truth reaches you faster. That became the phrase of the day, faster truth. Miles also had to learn how to hear criticism without turning it into a verdict. That was harder than the drills. When Lightning said his exit was late, Miles heard slow. When Dusty said he missed the surface change, Miles heard careless. When Ramon pointed out wasted motion in the tow rig, Miles heard broken. Mater noticed before anyone else and bumped him gently outside the shop. They're not saying you're hopeless, Mater said. They're showing you where the hope gets work done. Miles sat with that for a long moment. In his old life, flaws had felt like proof he should stop trying. Here, everyone kept treating flaws like directions. That was new enough to feel dangerous. After lunch, they tested it. Ramon tightened the tow rig's lateral play, Luigi adjusted tire pressure for mixed surfaces, and Guido changed the rear tires so quickly Miles felt like he had blinked through a magic trick. The changes did not make him powerful. They made him honest. Every mistake reached him sooner. Every wobble felt clearer. On the practice road, Lightning set 2 short sections, dirt into asphalt, asphalt into gravel. Miles was not allowed to run them fast. He had to call out what he felt before correcting it. Rear light, Miles said on the first dirt exit. Cable late, front grabbing. Again, Lightning said. Second run. Better, still waiting too long. Third run. Transition smoother, exit weak. Dusty watched from the side. You're listening earlier. Miles rolled back to the start. I hate how much earlier there is to listen. That's driving, Lightning said. Near sunset, Sterling Vale passed by the practice road with his crew trailer. He slowed just enough to be noticed. Reviewing your loss, Sterling called. Miles felt the old spark, but it did not catch. Yes, you should try reviewing your win. You almost clipped the rough straight showing off. Sterling's smile flickered. Lightning said nothing, but Mater made a tiny victorious noise. Sterling drove on. Miles exhaled. I shouldn't have said that. Why? Lightning asked. Because it felt good. Feeling good isn't always wrong. Did it change your next run? Miles looked at the practice section. No. Then prove it. He did. The final run of the day was not fast, but it was the cleanest transition he had made yet. Dirt released, asphalt grabbed, and instead of stiffening, Miles let the truck settle into the new surface before adding power. For half a second, the body did exactly what he asked. That half second mattered. Back at the garage, Lightning gave him the Regional Development Series schedule. 4 events over several weeks, mixed surfaces, longer courses, more racers like Sterling, and plenty who were faster without needing to talk about it. Miles read the paper twice. This is real. Mater parked close. You already did real once. Barely. Barely's still real. Dusty nodded toward the schedule. Pick the first event. Don't stare at all 4 or you'll start racing ghosts. Miles chose the first. A canyon-edge mixed route outside a small town 2 counties over. Dirt climb, paved descent, gravel service finish. It looked terrifying. It looked possible enough to begin. This one, Miles said. Lightning took the paper back. Then, tomorrow, we train for elevation. Mater groaned. Hills, my favorite thing to roll down and least favorite thing to roll up. Miles laughed, but his eyes stayed on the schedule. The qualifier had not been a dream ending. It had been a measuring stick. Now he knew where the next line was drawn. He intended to reach it, honestly. By the end of review, Miles had more notes than confidence, but the notes were useful. Useful was enough for the next morning. He could work with enough. For now, that was progress. Chapter 13, Hill Work. Hills were rude. Miles decided this halfway up the old canyon road, while his engine worked hard enough to make every bolt in his frame feel awake. Dirt had taught him patience. Asphalt had taught him precision. Gravel had taught him suspicion. Hills taught him that gravity had opinions, and all of them were personal. Mater climbed beside him, humming some half-remembered song about tow hooks and breakfast. Dusty waited higher up the road, watching the line. Lightning stayed below with a timer, because apparently suffering needed documentation. Do not attack the hill, Lightning called. Build the climb. Miles wanted to say that the hill had attacked first, but he saved the energy. The first regional development event had a dirt climb early in the course. On paper, Miles's weight and torque could help. In practice, too much throttle made his rear dig in, too little made him bog down, and every correction cost speed. The road narrowed near the top, which meant panic would turn into a very embarrassing slide toward a ditch. Dusty made him stop after the first bad run. What happened? Dusty asked. Miles looked back down the slope. I tried to force it. More specific. I hit the lower section too hard, lost smooth traction, corrected late, then overpowered the loose patch near the top. Better again, slower. Mater leaned close as they rolled back down. For the record, I thought your first attempt had lots of enthusiasm. It also had nearly becoming scenery. Scenery can be inspiring. The second attempt was slower. Miles hated it until he felt the difference. Instead of hammering the climb, he let the engine build, kept the front steady, and treated the hill as 3 sections instead of one enemy. Lower dirt, patient pull, middle stones, lighter throttle. Upper loose patch, stay straight, do not show off, do not chase the line a lighter car would use. He reached the top without sliding. Dusty nodded. Ugly, useful. Miles rolled to a stop beside him. That is going on my trophy. They trained the climb until noon. Mater ran it too, partly to demonstrate and partly because he enjoyed any road that gave him an excuse to yell. His technique was less clean than Lightning's would have been, but he understood how heavy vehicles talked to bad ground. Watching Mater helped Miles see that tow truck driving did not have to be graceful to be skilled. After lunch, Lightning moved them to the paved descent. If the climb was rude, the descent was malicious. Miles's weight wanted to carry him faster than his confidence. Braking too hard made the front complain. Braking too late made the corners rush at him like accusations. Lightning had him run the descent at painfully low speed until Miles could name each braking point without guessing. You cannot let gravity drive, Lightning said. It will happily take the wheel and send you a bill. Miles repeated the descent 6 times. On the 7th, he trusted the braking point, released smoothly, and turned without the rear trying to overtake him. It felt like solving a problem with his whole body. The lesson repeated on the descent in a different form. Miles had to stop thinking of braking as weakness. Braking at the right point was not fear, it was choosing where speed belonged. Lightning made him say that aloud after the 3rd descent, partly because Miles kept treating every lift off the throttle like surrender. By the 5th descent, the idea finally stuck. Control did not make him less brave. Control was what kept bravery from becoming wreckage. That mattered more than Sterling's opinion. It mattered more than the stopwatch for now. The canyon event would not reward the tow truck who looked most fearless. It would reward the one who stayed useful when the road tried to pull every mistake out into the open. Sterling showed up in the afternoon because apparently arrogance had a schedule too. He watched from the overlook while Miles practiced the descent. The silver coupe did not interrupt at first. That was almost worse. When Miles finished a run and pulled aside to cool down, Sterling rolled closer. He'll work. Ambitious. The canyon event has actual racers entered. That's why I'm training. Training won't change what you are. Miles looked at him. A week ago, that would have cut deep. Now it landed differently. Good, Miles said. My whole plan depends on learning what I am. Sterling stared at him, then laughed like he had chosen to be amused instead of annoyed. We'll see how poetic you feel after the canyon descent. He left before Miles could answer. For once, Miles did not need the last word. The final drill combined climb and descent. Up the dirt, pause at the marker, down the paved section, then onto a short gravel exit. Not fast. Connected. That was Lightning's word. Miles had to carry information from one surface into the next without treating each section like a brand new panic. The first combined run was messy. The second was better. The third nearly failed when a gust blew sand across the gravel exit, but Miles saw the color change in time and adjusted early. Dusty actually smiled. Mater gasped. Dusty, your face did a happy thing. Heat mirage, Dusty said. By evening, Miles was exhausted enough that even Pride felt tired. Ramon checked the frame for stress. Luigi complained about the tires in a tone that meant they had performed well enough. Guido cleaned dust from Miles's wheel wells with stern dedication. Miles watched the canyon road darken under sunset and tried to imagine running something like this with other racers around him. Engines roaring, Sterling somewhere ahead or behind, the pressure of a real event turning every choice louder. Fear answered first. Then excitement. Mater parked beside him. Still want the canyon race. Miles thought about the climb, the descent, the gravel, the way each section had made him feel clumsy before it made him feel smarter. Yes, he said, more than this morning. even though hills are rude. Especially because hills are rude. Lightning overheard and nodded. Good, tomorrow we add traffic. Miles turned. Traffic. Mater winced. Other cars bane where you wish they weren't. Real educational. Miles looked back at the road. The mountain did not care whether he was ready. That was fine. He was learning to care enough for both of them. Chapter 14. Traffic Lessons. Lightning's idea of traffic was 6 volunteers, 3 cones, 1 blind bend, and absolutely no sympathy. Miles stared at the practice course from the shoulder of the canyon road. Mater, Dusty, Flo, Sheriff, Ramon, and a boxy delivery van named Cal had agreed to help. They were not racing. They were obstacles, moving reference points, pressure, noise, and all the things Miles could not practice alone. This feels personal, Miles said. Lightning rolled beside him. It is. Other cars will be where you want to be. You need to make decisions without getting offended by physics. Mater raised a tire from farther up the road. I'm gonna be very educational. That worries me, Miles said. The canyon event would not give him empty roads. It would give him nervous amateurs, faster cars trying to pass, slower cars blocking lines, and Sterling Vale somewhere nearby turning every moment into theater. Miles had trained surfaces. Now he had to train proximity. The first drill was passing. Cal rolled ahead at a steady pace, while Miles started 3 lengths behind. The goal was simple. Close carefully, choose a side, pass only when the road allowed it, and return to line without forcing Cal to brake. Lightning made it sound easy because lightning was cruel in precise ways. Miles closed too quickly on the first run and had to back off hard. On the second, he waited so long the passing window vanished. On the third, he moved left before checking the gravel edge and felt the rear twitch when loose stones caught his tire. Dusty barked from the roadside. You saw space and forgot surface. Miles rolled back to the start. I know. Then know it earlier. The fourth run worked. Miles closed slowly, read the surface, waited for the road to widen, and passed Cal with enough room that the delivery van honked approval instead of fear. It was not dramatic. That was the point. The second drill was being passed. Miles hated it immediately. Ramon came up behind him, not fast enough to be dangerous, but close enough that Miles felt the pressure in every panel. The instinct to defend rose hot. He wanted to drift wider, make himself large, prove he could not be shoved aside. Lightning's voice cut through it. Hold your line. Let faster traffic go when fighting costs more than it earns. Miles's pride argued. His training answered. He stayed predictable through the bend. Ramon slipped past cleanly on the outside and gave him a quick flash of color as thanks. Mater cheered. Look at that. You got past professionally. That is not a phrase I wanted in my life, Miles muttered. But it mattered. Losing a position safely was better than wrecking to defend one he could not keep. The lesson tasted bitter but useful. By midday, they combined the drills. Flo moved slowly through the dirt climb. Sheriff held the middle of the paved descent like a stubborn wall. Mater appeared at unpredictable places, sometimes wide, sometimes slow, sometimes pretending not to know where he was going even though Miles suspected he was doing an expert impression of chaos. Miles made mistakes. He stared at Mater too long and missed a breaking point. He followed Sheriff's line instead of choosing his own. He tried to pass Flo before a surface change and had to abort. Each failure made Lightning stop the drill and ask the same question. What did you choose too late? That was always the problem. Late seeing, late deciding, late accepting that the cleanest path was not always the path he wanted. In the afternoon, Sterling arrived. He did not bring his crew this time. Just himself, polished silver paint, and a smile that said he had already decided what everyone else was worth. Practicing how to be traffic, Sterling asked. Useful role for you. Miles was tired enough that the insult almost slipped under his armor. Mater rolled forward, but Miles spoke first. Practicing how not to turn every pass into a personality crisis, Miles said. Sterling's eyes narrowed. You think I have that problem? I think you perform when you should drive. The words landed. Everyone felt it. Lightning did not interrupt. Dusty looked faintly amused. Sterling rolled closer. At the canyon event, if I come up behind you, move. Miles met his gaze. If you're faster and the pass is clean, I will. If you try to scare me into a mistake, you can find your own road. For the first time, Sterling did not laugh. He left a minute later, but the pressure stayed. Miles's next run was terrible. He braked too late, clipped a cone, and nearly boxed Mater into the shoulder. Lightning stopped everything. What changed? Miles stared at the cone. Sterling got in my head. No, you let him stay after he left. Different thing. Again. The correction was sharp, but Miles needed it. He ran the drill again. Then again. On the fourth attempt, he let Cal pass on the asphalt, passed Flo on the dirt, avoided Mater's fake confusion, and stayed steady when Sheriff crowded the middle. It was ugly. It was controlled. At sunset, the volunteers gathered near the overlook. Miles parked with his engine ticking hot, body dusty, pride bruised but intact. Mater bumped him gently. You did good. I got past, boxed in, insulted, and almost shoved you into a ditch. Like I said, educational. Lightning rolled up with the day's notes. You improved. Your passing is cautious but safe. Being passed still makes you angry. Sterling can use that if you let him. Miles looked down the canyon road. Then I need to not let him. Dusty nodded. That's not a sentence, that's practice. The canyon event was getting closer. Miles could feel the shape of it now. Not a fantasy race, not a movie moment, but a long chain of choices under pressure. Some choices would be small. Some would feel unfair. All of them would matter. He was still not fast enough to beat Sterling. But he was becoming harder to break. That mattered too. Chapter 15. Leaving Radiator Springs. The day before the canyon event, Radiator Springs became too helpful. Miles appreciated the intent. He really did. But there was only so much encouragement a tow truck could absorb before it started feeling like extra cargo. Flo packed oil and spare filters. Luigi argued with Guido about which tires deserved the honor of being emergency backups. Ramon checked the tow rig one more time, then checked it again because he claimed the first check had been for confidence and the second for truth. Mater tried to bring 3 toolboxes, 2 lucky hubcaps, and a folding chair that had no reason to exist in a race trailer. Lightning watched the growing pile beside Mac's trailer and finally said, "We're going to a regional development event, not colonizing the moon." Mater looked offended. "You don't know what the moon roads are like." Miles laughed, but his engine still idled unevenly. Tomorrow was the Canyon Edge event. Not a practice run, not a local qualifier, not a clean little test where everyone in town knew his name. This would be his first race away from Radiator Springs. Other amateurs would be there. Some would be slower. Many would be faster. Sterling Vale would almost certainly make sure Miles knew which group he belonged to. Mater rolled up beside him while everyone else argued over supplies. "You keep staring at that trailer like it's gonna bite." "It might," Miles said. "I haven't ruled it out." "You scared of leaving?" Miles wanted to answer quickly, but the question deserved better. He looked down the main road running through town, the road that had become familiar 1 awkward mile at a time. "A little," he admitted. "Here, people know what I'm trying to do. Out there, I'm just a rusty tow truck showing up where faster cars are already sure I don't belong." Mater bumped him gently. "You were that here too at first." That was true. It was also annoying, because Mater delivered it without trying to sound wise. Lightning called the final meeting near the courthouse. The plan was simple. Travel today, inspect the course tomorrow morning, race in the afternoon. No last-minute heroic changes. No arguing with officials. No racing Sterling in the parking lot, verbally or otherwise. Miles suspected that last rule had been added for him. Dusty pointed at the course map. The canyon route has 3 danger spots: dirt climb after the first mile, paved descent with a blind right, gravel finish with a shoulder that drops off faster than it looks. You know all 3 in pieces. Tomorrow you meet them connected. And traffic, Lightning added. Do not forget traffic. Miles nodded. Pass clean, be passed clean. Hold my line unless the road says otherwise. Good. Ramon tapped Miles's side. And don't come back with my bracket bent unless the story is worth it. That's touching. I try. They left after lunch. Mac carried the supplies: Lightning, Luigi, Guido, and Ramon's equipment. Miles drove with Mater and Dusty along the highway for part of the trip because Lightning wanted him feeling the distance instead of being hauled there like cargo. The desert widened around them. Radiator Springs shrank in the mirrors until it became memory and neon promise. Miles had expected leaving to feel like escape. It felt more like being trusted. The road to the canyon town rose gradually. Pavement changed texture. Wind pushed differently across his boxy frame. The tow rig shifted behind him with every gust, not dangerously, but enough to remind him that the world outside home would not smooth itself for his comfort. Mater stayed beside him. For once, he did not fill every mile with chatter. Dusty rode ahead, occasionally calling back surface notes. Lightning followed behind, watching for habits Miles could not hide from a champion's eyes. Near sunset, they reached the event town, a small cluster of garages, motels, and food stands built around the mouth of a canyon road. Race banners crossed the street. Cars from different towns filled the lots. Some were polished, some were battered. All of them looked like they had arrived with purpose. Sterling Vale was already there. Of course he was. The silver coupe sat under a canopy, speaking to 2 other racers with the relaxed confidence of someone who expected the world to arrange itself into an audience. When he saw Miles, he smiled. You actually came, Sterling said. Miles stopped beside Mater. You invited me by being annoying. One of Sterling's companions laughed before hiding it badly. Sterling's smile sharpened. Try to stay out of the way tomorrow, he said. Miles felt the pressure rise. Then he remembered traffic drills, being passed professionally, holding a line, not letting Sterling stay after he left. If you're faster, pass clean, Miles said. If you're not, wait like everyone else. Sterling's eyes narrowed, just enough to count, as a victory Miles refused to celebrate out loud. Before settling in, Lightning made Miles do one slow loop around the paddock. Not for practice, he said, but to notice. Miles saw how different racers prepared, some laughing too loudly, some checking tires in silence, some staring at the canyon like it owed them money. Nobody looked perfectly ready. That helped. The polished cars were not fearless machines from another world. They were competitors with their own habits, crews, doubts, and ways of hiding pressure. Miles was still the rusty tow truck in the lot, but he was not the only one carrying nerves under his paint. That night, Miles parked outside the motel instead of sleeping in Mac's trailer. The canyon road climbed into darkness beyond town, invisible except for a few guard reflectors catching moonlight. Tomorrow he would put all the pieces together: dirt, hill, descent, gravel, traffic, pride, fear. Mater parked beside him, still wanted. Miles watched the dark road. Yes, he said, and I'm still scared. Good, Mater replied. Means you're paying attention. Miles smiled. Everyone kept saying that because it was still true. Tomorrow would not prove he belonged forever. It would only prove what he could do next. For now, next was enough. Chapter 16, Course Walk. The canyon course looked narrower in the morning. Miles' new roads did that. At a distance, they were lines on paper, clean and harmless. Up close, they became slopes, cracks, blind spots, gravel piles, and guardrails that looked far too interested in meeting his paint. The event officials opened the route for a slow course walk after sunrise, and Miles rolled onto it with Lightning ahead, Dusty behind, and Mater beside him trying very hard to whisper. Mater's whisper was just his regular voice with guilt in it. "That drop sure is droppy," he said, looking over the canyon edge. Miles did not look helpful. "I got more observations, if you need 'em. Save them for my obituary." Lightning slowed before the dirt climb. "Focus. First section. Tell me what you see." Miles forced his attention off the canyon and onto the road. Packed dirt center. Loose edges. 2 shallow ruts before the left bend. Climb steepens after the marker sign. If I hit the lower section too hard, I waste traction before the top. Dusty nodded. "And if someone stalls ahead?" Miles looked at the shoulder. "Right side is too soft. Left has room for 1 clean pass if I commit early. If I wait, I stay behind." "Good," Lightning said. "Not every delay needs a pass. Remember that." They climbed slowly. At walking pace, the hill did not feel dramatic, which made it more dangerous. Miles could already imagine racers overdriving it because it looked manageable until the surface changed under pressure. He marked the loose stones near the upper patch and the little dip where a heavy frame might unload at exactly the wrong moment. The paved descent came next. Here, the canyon opened wide on one side and rock rose close on the other. The road curved right, then left, then dropped into a longer straight that would invite every impatient racer to gain speed before the gravel finish. Lightning stopped at the blind right. "This is where your race can go bad without you making the original mistake. Someone ahead panics, brakes late, or slides wide. What do? Brake before the blind zone. Hold predictable. Leave escape room. Don't dive inside unless I can see the exit. And if Sterling presses behind you." Miles took longer. The honest answer mattered. "I don't defend the canyon edge like an idiot. If his pass is clean, I let him go. If he pressures without space, I hold my line and make him choose." Mater exhaled like he had been holding his breath. Dusty gave a small, approving grunt. The gravel finish was last. It looked almost simple, which by now Miles distrusted automatically. The surface glittered pale under the sun. A shallow rut crossed the middle near a faded flag. The right shoulder dropped into loose sand. The left side had better grip, but led into a tighter exit. Miles rolled through it slowly, feeling every stone through his tires. "This is where I can make up time if I stay calm," he said. Lightning smiled slightly. "That's a dangerous sentence. Because wanting time makes me rush." "Good. Know it before the flag drops." They returned to the paddock just as more racers arrived. Miles recognized some from the qualifier, and many he did not. A green hatchback with chipped paint introduced herself as Myra and asked about his tow rig without laughing. A heavy utility racer named Boone said tow trucks had better gravel instincts than people expected. For once, Miles had conversations with racers who were curious instead of dismissive. Sterling interrupted, naturally. "Making friends in the slow lane?" he asked. Myra looked him over. "You always talk this much before races." Boone added, "Must be aerodynamic. Hot air reduces drag." Mater made a sound, like a kettle exploding. Sterling's polished confidence cracked for half a second. Miles did not need to say anything. That felt better than winning the exchange himself. Inspection went clean. Ramon's bracket held. Luigi's tires passed. Guido performed a practice change so fast 2 visiting mechanics applauded despite themselves. Miles started feeling almost steady. Then the officials posted the heat list. Miles was in heat 2. Sterling was also in heat 2. So was Boone. So was Myra. And the start order placed Sterling directly behind Miles. Mater read the list twice. "Well, that's rude." Miles stared at the paper. Sterling behind him meant pressure from the launch. It meant engine noise in his blind spots, silver paint in the mirror, and every instinct screaming to prove he could not be bullied. Lightning moved beside him. "Say the goal." Miles did not look away from the list. Finish clean, make decisions under pressure, learn. Again. Finish clean, make decisions under pressure, learn. Dusty added, and Miles swallowed. Do not let Sterling drive my truck from behind me. Mater nodded firmly. That's the one. The hours before the heat stretched thin. Miles watched Heat 1 from the paddock. 2 cars overcooked the dirt climb. 1 clipped the gravel rut and lost 3 positions. The canyon descent stayed clean, but only because the lead car backed out instead of fighting a pass near the blind right. Every observation became a note. Every note became a nerve. When Heat 2 was called, Miles rolled toward the staging line. The canyon road waited ahead, bright and narrow. Sterling pulled in behind him, engine purring like a threat disguised as music. Nice view, Sterling called. Shame I'll have to pass it. Miles looked forward. Mater's voice came from the side, softer than usual. You're not here to be shiny. Lightning added, drive your earned line. Dusty said, road changes, you change earlier. Miles let the words settle, where fear had been trying to sit. The official raised the flag for staging. Miles rolled to the line. The canyon did not care who mocked him. It did not care who believed in him either. That was fine. Miles cared enough to listen. Chapter 17, Heat 2. The flag dropped, and Sterling Vale became noise. Miles had expected the silver coupe behind him to launch clean and hard. Sterling did. His engine snapped forward like a threat, close enough that Miles felt the pressure before the first dirt bend. Every instinct screamed to defend, to make himself wider, to prove he would not be shoved aside by a polished car with a better body and worse manners. Lightning's voice cut through memory. Do not let Sterling drive your truck from behind. Miles held his own launch. Not heroic, not fast, clean. Boone surged ahead on the inside with utility truck torque that surprised 2 lighter racers. Myra slipped left, nimble and bright green in Miles's side vision. Sterling feinted right behind him, trying to make Miles flinch before the climb. Miles did not move. The first dirt section rose toward the canyon bend. Packed center, loose edges, 2 shallow ruts. He had said the words yesterday. Now the road made him prove he had meant them. He kept the throttle steady and let the front settle before the climb steepened. Sterling darted left. There was space, not much, but enough for a clean pass if Sterling committed early. Miles could have pinched him. He wanted to. Instead, he held predictable because fighting here would cost more than it earned. Sterling shot past with inches to spare, silver paint flashing in the sun. Knew you'd move, Sterling called as he pulled ahead. Miles kept his eyes on the road. I didn't move. You passed. Learn the difference. The words vanished into dust. The climb punished the cars ahead almost immediately. A yellow hatchback hit the lower section too hard and bounced wide. Myra adjusted early and slipped around. Boone muscled through the middle. Sterling stayed fast, but Miles saw the coupe's rear skip over the upper loose patch. Not enough to wreck, enough to notice. Miles reached the top 5th out of 6. Not last. Not the point. The paved descent opened with the blind right waiting like a held breath. Sterling was ahead of Boone now, pushing for second. Myra held the cleanest line. The hatchback recovered behind Miles, impatient and buzzing. Miles braked before the blind zone. The hatchback did not. He heard the engine behind him rise, then the scrape of tires grabbing too late. For one ugly second, the hatchback filled his mirror, coming up fast enough to make panic feel reasonable. Hold, predictable. Miles held the line. The hatchback swerved outside, clipped loose grit near the edge, and lost speed instead of hitting him. Miles felt the rush of air and fear pass together. Mater's distant shout from the spectator ridge was probably encouragement. It sounded like a wordless alarm. The descent tightened. Gravity pulled at Miles's heavy frame. He wanted to brake harder. He wanted to surrender speed before it became danger, but too much braking would make him a wall for the hatchback and a target for his own fear. Brake where chosen, release, turn, let the weight settle. The truck obeyed. Halfway down, Boone made a mistake. The heavy utility racer entered the left too wide and had to lift. Myra passed him clean. Sterling tried to follow her through the same gap, saw it closing, and forced the issue anyway. Boone had to brake. The crowd noise rose from somewhere below. Miles saw the whole thing like a lesson drawing itself in dust. Sterling performing, Boone paying, the road narrowing after the blind right. He did not chase the drama. He took the wider line Lightning had drilled into him and came out of the descent behind Boone, close but safe. The gravel finish waited. Pale surface, hidden rut near the flag, soft right shoulder, better left grip, tighter exit. Sterling and Myra were already fighting ahead. Boone blocked the center. Miles had one choice: stay behind Boone and finish safe, or commit left before the rut and risk a tighter exit with the hatchback still behind him. He looked farther. The left line was there, narrow but real. Miles committed early. His tires hit gravel, tow rig steady behind him. Boone drifted center, expecting Miles to hesitate. Miles did not. He eased left, avoided the rut, and let the heavy frame pull through the tighter exit. For 3 seconds, the pass worked. Then Sterling overperformed. Ahead, the silver coupe tried to snap around Myra near the final marker, hit the edge of the rough straight too aggressively, and scattered gravel across the line. Myra backed out. Sterling saved the slide, but the correction slowed both of them. Boone braked. The hatchback behind Miles panicked. The road became a problem, with no perfect answer. Miles chose the least stupid one. He lifted early, let Boone settle ahead, and held left instead of diving into Sterling's mess. The hatchback shot past on the right, hit the rut wrong, and bounced wide into the soft shoulder, losing all momentum. Miles powered out. The finish line came fast. Sterling crossed first in the heat by less than he wanted. Myra second. Boone third. Miles fourth again, close enough to Boone that the utility racer looked back in surprise. Miles crossed clean. His engine roared with heat and frustration, and something better than both. He had let Sterling pass. He had survived pressure from behind. He had made one real pass attempt and one smart decision not to turn chaos into wreckage. Fourth again. This time, fourth felt sharper. Sterling slowed ahead, still first, still polished, but no longer looking untouchable. Miles rolled past the finish marker and heard Mater shouting from the ridge. Not victory. Progress. He could work with progress. As he cooled near the exit lane, Miles replayed the race without trying to make himself look better. That was new too. He had lost time, yes, but he could name why. He had let Sterling pass because the road allowed it, not because Sterling owned the space. He had kept the hatchback from turning his mirror into a panic switch. He had chosen not to dive into chaos at the final marker. Those choices were not glamorous, but they were his, and every one of them had kept him whole. Chapter 18. What the time sheet said. The time sheet did not care about feelings. Miles respected that and hated it. The numbers went up on the event board 20 minutes after Heat 2, printed in neat black rows that made every choice look simple after the fact. Sterling first in the heat, Myra second, Boone third, Miles fourth, the hatchback fifth after losing time in the shoulder. Overall, Miles sat in the lower middle again. Better than before by seconds. Still nowhere near the front. Mater read the sheet like it was a treasure map. Look at that. Your gravel split is better than Boone's. Barely, Miles said. Barely keeps showing up for you. I think it's a fan. Lightning studied the numbers without smiling. Dirt climb improved. Descent stable. Gravel decision was good. You lost time when Sterling forced the mess near the final marker. I lifted because the road went stupid. Correct choice, Dusty said from behind him. Wrong emotion after. Miles turned. What does that mean? You were angry about making the right call because it cost time. That matters. Next time anger might talk you into the wrong one. Miles looked back at the board. Dusty was right. He had crossed clean, but part of him kept replaying the final marker, trying to invent a version where he dove through Sterling's gravel spray, past Boone, and looked spectacular. That version probably ended with bent metal. Ramon checked Miles's tow rig while they talked. Brackets fine. Rear mount took some chatter on the gravel, but nothing ugly. Tires looked like they had an argument with geology. Luigi made a wounded sound. They were brave. Guido nodded gravely. Myra rolled over before Miles could answer. Up close, the green hatchback looked less polished than she had on the course. Scratches cut across one side, and her front bumper had been repaired more than once. Good hold on the descent, she said. Miles blinked. Thanks, good pass on Boone. Sterling nearly wrecked both of us trying to follow it. Boone joined them, heavy frame dusty from the heat. Sterling thinks every gap belongs to him because he noticed it. Miles glanced toward the silver coupe's canopy. Sterling was speaking to an official with calm, expensive irritation. Apparently almost losing the final marker had become someone else's fault in his version. Does he always do that? Miles asked. Myra shrugged. He wins enough that people call it confidence. Boone looked at Miles. You didn't fold when he came through behind you. That's something. Most beginners either block stupid or vanish. Miles was not sure what to do with praise from racers outside Radiator Springs. I thought about blocking stupid. Thinking ain't doing. The second round of heats ran after lunch. Miles was not in it. The development event gave each racer one official heat and one optional timed improvement run if the vehicle passed inspection. Sterling took his improvement run immediately and shaved time off by attacking the gravel finish even harder. It worked because he was good. That was the annoying part. Sterling was arrogant, but not fake. Myra improved too. Boone chose not to run again because his suspension had taken a hit. Miles watched all of it while Lightning waited. You want the improvement run, Lightning said. Miles did not bother denying it. Yes. Why? Because I know where I can clean up the transition into gravel.